where automatically it's doing payroll processing or sending those bank account details, that person can then do something else in a company, right? And so when we look at having staff, most, all companies want to have fewer staff, right? Because as you have staff, you have more expenses. The last thing I would say here is the software robots are also called digital workers, which is very interesting because, we all are people, but then, in RP industry, we consider to be human workers. So human workers versus digital workers. Software robots, which work in RPA, are digital workers. So what's so unique about digital workers? Digital workers work like humans, right? They can do a lot of these tasks, but they're also different because they can work, equivalent to several humans. Now, in this example, we only looked at a person's task being taken up by a software program, but these digital workers can work around the clock, 24/7. They don't get tired. They don't get bored. They don't need to go for a chai break or a coffee break. They don't need vacation. They don't quit their jobs. So it's very interesting because the kind of work that people have been doing, a lot of people in a lot of companies do these kind of tasks which are now getting automated by digital workers. And these workers, one digital worker can work 24/7. One human only works 7 to 8 hours. Effective work time in most offices is 4 to 5 hours or 6 hours, right? Because people are having lunch, they're having meetings. So that, as you start seeing, is such a compelling proposition because more and more companies, and I'll give you some examples in industry now, are now bringing these workforce of digital workers into the organization. And it's something which is not, which can happen. This technology has been around for a while and it's already happening. So, where is it sitting, when companies look at this against everything else, it's really in the center of what is called digital transformation. All of you have heard of different acronyms, SMAC, social media, automation cloud. I mean, there's so many different ways of defining digital transformation, but this is really central, and you see the reason why, because it's delivering productivity, it's reducing cost, it's increasing time to market. So companies are finding that not only are they able to do these activities for less cost without any errors, but they're also able to do them very fast. And as these activities can be done fast, we haven't we had talked about research, for example, right? In clinical research, if this technology is used, it can process a lot of data, which anyway computers could do, but across different systems. Hence, if a vaccine is being developed or if any technology is being, space exploration, it can help crunch a lot of information very fast. So I'm not going to spend too much time on this slide, but I just want to put in perspective here that in most companies, as as some of you who have had some experience in corporates may know, there's always the business team and the IT team. Right? The IT team is running the computers, is running all the infrastructure, but they're also considered to be, difficult to work with. I worked in IT departments earlier, but a lot of businesses feel that IT is slow, IT takes a lot of time, it's expensive. So this technology is also very unique because it is business control. Many of our customers, work with this technology where they are able to, directly set up this technology without, needing help from IT. And I'll show you some screens now to tell you why I say that and how easy it is. Otherwise, any other technology, be it ERP, any other technology would always need some help from IT. So it's extremely easy for business. Now, some of you may be sitting here wondering that all this sounds good, but computers have been there, softwares have been there for a while, for 30, 40, 50 years. So why is this RPA different? How is it different? Or is it different or not? So I thought I'll just bring 2 or 3 comparisons between a traditional software program and RPA. Right? How is this different? Why are we saying this is different? This is new, and this is a new age technology versus what's already been happening. So if you look at traditional systems, and I'm sure some of you here have been into coding or are looking to get into coding and do some programming and things like those. But all the traditional software, when you start developing the software, you will realize that you have to integrate systems, right? You will have to you have a software A, you have a software B, or any kind of, in real life, you will have to integrate programs. Programs talk to each other, and that works through what is called APIs, Application Programming Interface, which means you need to know coding to be able to see the, see the API, see the data format, how it's being received from the system, and write a program to integrate this. Because there's no software in the world that can work in isolation. You always need to connect with other systems, big or small. But in case of RPA, that integration is working on a user interface, graphic user interface, which means in our example of an Excel sheet and a website and Gmail, the user is always interacting with the system with a graphic user interface, right? I don't know what is the ICICI Bank website or an Excel and a Gmail. I just, as a user, pick data from one system, take it to another system, from there save a file, take it to the third system and email it. So in RPA, it's all working as the user works. It's all working in a graphic user interface versus an application programming interface for traditional software, which is a big thing because now you can integrate almost any software. Because if you have to integrate systems, in offices and institutions, you need to know the API. Sometimes the APIs are published, sometimes they're not published. I'm a student. Why will Gmail tell me their API? Maybe it's published on the on the internet, but maybe it is not. ICICI Bank will definitely not tell you all. It's all its APIs because it's banking transactions. Secondly, like I said earlier, the traditional softwares require programming knowledge, right? You need to be a coder, and there is a development time which is relatively longer. You need to spend some time to code, to write the program, to test it. Whereas in case of RPA, it is what is called low code or no code development. So there is this, I won't even say a movement. Now there's a big set of industry change that is happening where people are wondering, why should you be required to know some very difficult to know, hard to learn programming? Why can't anybody who uses MS Office, who just knows how to use computers, why can't they program? So there's this whole thing coming about of no code development. And in offices, it is also called citizen development. Citizen development means anybody who's a common corporate citizen, who has not gone to college to study computer programming, who could be a mechanical engineer or or somebody who's known finance or accounting. Why can't they start coding? And how? So it's all, if an accountant can use Excel, and if an accountant can use a website and use Microsoft PowerPoint, why can't they program? So now there are programming interfaces and programming environments where even such people can program. And RPA is very similar. It does not require high-end coding. It's all these things we just talked about. Works 24 hours, doesn't make any mistakes, can process large amounts of data, and it doesn't require any coding knowledge. You can write these programs, almost in minutes. Similarly, traditional software, in terms of differences, also has some limitations, has some boundaries, because I am only making an email program. I'm making a bank software. I cannot, be making a bank software and an email program and MS Office. Whereas in RPA, it performs actions across boundaries. So you like the examples we talked about, from a HR system to a finance system, you could just integrate all of these together. So hopefully you're now getting a sense of what RPA is and also how it is different from traditional software programs. So I mentioned that this is low code or no code, right? So I think that is something most of you would be wondering, how does it look? So here's an example of a typical development environment that is used in RPA.
Well, here.
So it's a simple drag and drop coding. Many of you would have known these decision, the whole flow charts. You have decision boxes, you have a start, you have an end, you have if and then loop. So it's very intuitive. And see on the left, if you see, there are different stages: action, decision, choices, calculation. And it is suitable for, like I said earlier, citizen development. This, by the way, is from Blue Prism. I didn't mention earlier, but the company I work for is a RPA company. It's one of the top companies in the world, in RPA. So this is, but then you could see in any other product as well. All of these have a very similar, very intuitive Now there are some RPA technologies which are very API intensive, and then you start wondering, is it really RPA? But all the ones that are, like ours, which is in the market, which are the, some of the leading companies, they all just drag and drop. If you can use Visio, if you can use MS PowerPoint, if you can pull these arrows and put some decision making, you can code an RPA. In fact, most of our customers in the offices, a lot of the people who do RPA development are not coders. They don't have computer background, but they are RPA developers. Okay, so now I think if I have been able to establish, in your minds, what is RPA, how is it used, and how is it different from traditional software, I think it's very important to understand where is this being used in industry, right? Any technology is of use, is of reckoning if it is being used in industry, and it's increasing. So why do companies use RPA? There are multiple reasons why companies are using RPA. The first and foremost, I would say, is cost, because all companies which are for-profit organization, they want to reduce the cost of operations, right? You can make more money, you can earn more money, you get more business, or you also need to reduce your cost of operations. So staff cost is one of the highest operating costs in services organizations. Services organizations, you can imagine, are like banks, courier companies, where they're not manufacturing it; they're basically providing services. And when services are provided, you need people to provide services, right? So wherever there are services organizations which require people to be working on computers in these big offices, hundreds of people sitting in big buildings, this is the technology that can take away part of their work, which is repetitive, and as we discussed, high volume, repetitive, dealing with structured data and low decision making. Also, companies are using RPA to benefit from faster transaction processing. So consider an example where stock trading, right? Many of us do stock trading, or you may want to do it at a personal level. But when you look at a stock broking house, they have tens and hundreds of people sitting there, and they have to make some decisions. You see a stock price for a particular company, and that keeps changing. And you get the stock price, then you see the analysis for the company, look at some of the parameters on their growth, on their profitability, on their value of the company, whatever. And then you have to decide whether I have to sell if I'm already carrying, if I should buy more, or whatever. Now, that process of picking the share price and deciding actually can be programmed, right? You will have to work through multiple systems, but you can program that. If you don't, if you do it manually, by the time you get the data for a stock price, you see the price, you open some Excel sheets, open some systems, and you say, okay, I think we should buy. And you go there, that price has changed. So the decision making has taken some time. But if you think something like RPA, that decision making can be, it's rule based. You can quickly process it, and you can take a decision. So time is money. Similarly, if you're waiting if you call up customer support for a telecom company or for a bank, the faster you turn around, the better is the customer experience, right? So it affects all of these. It affects cost. It affects speed of delivering service. It also affects in better employee. A lot of our customers, for example, some of my customers tell me that after they have used RPA in their departments like procurement and finance, people were working late earlier, especially end of the month, because they had a lot of ledgers to fill, a lot of work to do across different computer systems. End of the month, end of the year, 31st March, go home at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. But now with RPA, there's a better employee work-life balance, because a lot of this work that people are doing, which is not requiring decision making, but they have to keep doing it, can be automated. So you don't need to get too worried about this slide. It's a little busy slide, but I want to just show you, give you a feel that when I say that companies can use RPA, you must be wondering, so where would they use it, and which kind of company? So almost any company which is of certain size. If you have a 5-member company, 20-member company, this may not be so suitable. You can still automate, but RPA requires or gives more value when you have slightly larger size. And then when you have slightly larger size companies, you have different departments. you have finance and accounting, you may have procurement, you have human resources, reporting, and sales and marketing. There's so many more. So this is some of the typical examples. And within each department, if you see there, these are the different activities that are done, different sub functions. And the ones in green and in purple give you like a heat map to say, so you see finance and accounting, almost everything except risk and fixed assets there can be automated using RPA. And the reason is because in finance and accounting, as you would know, most of it is dealing with structured data, cash management, credit management, cash posting, reporting. All these use numbers. And the moment you have numbers and you have these repetitive tasks, you can easily automate. Whereas if you look at human resources, there is planning, there's contracting, employee development, making the training programs, employee engagement, talking to employees. Software cannot talk to employees as a person would. So those are things that cannot be automated. So it's quite a enabling technology, and it is relevant to most companies of a certain size. How much they automate depends on which industry they are in, what kind of work they're doing, and a lot of other, how many countries do they operate, or how many cities do they operate from. I decided to include this slide. I'm not going to talk too much. Like I said, if those of you who have interest later, please reach out either through your institute, or you'll have my email address after this, and I'll be more than happy to talk you through some of this in detail. But I just would say that when you start looking at, okay, this is a technology, companies use it. So how do they go about deploying this technology? So there are three broad steps that companies use. The first is called process discovery, which is there's a lot of sub steps into that, but that is used for by companies to identify the processes that can be automated. And there's a whole process, they do some assessment. And then once they have decided which processes to automate, there's a small delivery phase or development phase. It can be 2 to 3 weeks. It can even be 2 to 3 days. Depends on how many steps you're automating. So you identify the process, you develop it. Like I said, most of these developments are done by business people who may not be coders. And then you run into the ongoing work, right? It is just like having a human workers. You have digital workers who would be then doing doing this every day. There'll be some issues. Sometimes you have to see if some process has failed. You may have said, go and pick this file, but some system has not dropped that file the previous night, so the system has failed. You have to go and check. So there's a piece of work around ongoing support. So broadly, these are the steps that go about, that companies go about in terms of enabling RPA in the organization. Find the processes, because big companies have hundreds of processes. So you identify them, you automate them, and then you run them. So now, as we started hopefully getting some idea into this, you must be wondering, so how much does it cost? And I said somewhere that it helps companies save money. So I'm giving some numbers here. It's extremely very, very, it's basically, these are estimates. You could see companies doing it for much less, for much more, and I'll talk about some of the different situations. You can even do it for free, actually, right? But if it's a big company, you want to use a product which is which is backed by a company. If you have some issues, if you're just doing if you're a 2-member, 3-member company, you can go ahead and use some of the open source or free products. So the cost of deploying it in companies depends on multiple factors: the type of software, the license you're using, the kind of people you're using for development. So the different cost buckets. But typically, to give you some example, if it's a large bank, if it's a big company which is working, and which has a lot of other requirements. Most companies today have a lot of controls requirements. They have a lot of software security requirements, which free softwares will not do. So I'm basically giving this as an example for a company which is probably having a turnover of a few hundreds of crores, or maybe more, a few thousand of crores, and they have lots of people. So if they have to use RPA, a typical cost to do the work of 30 people, right? If there's a department with, let's say, 50 people, you may still need some people to look at the work being done by the digital workers, but you could probably look at 30 or 40 people's work being automated. And that would have the one-time cost, like I said, the process discovery and the deployment, about $150,000. or maybe approximately 1 crore, which looks a lot. But if you see, once that is done one time, right, for a few years, then they're only spending maybe 25 to 30 lakhs annually. So 30 lakhs annually after that initial 1 crore that they spend in 25, 30, 40 lakhs approximately every year, they're able to do the work of almost 30 to 40 people. So all of us know that at those kind of numbers in such companies that I'm talking about, it becomes extremely attractive. So I just brought this here to give you a sense of some costs. Like I said, it's just very indicative, but hopefully you get to see some, get some sense of what kind of numbers companies look for. So where is RPA heading? What's happening? RPA has been around for almost, I would say, 10 years, right? In its current form. Blue Prism, the company I work for, coined the term RPA. I think it's about now 8 years back, but it's been changing very rapidly. And if you see the market summary today, there are multiple players. There are some, top 2 or 3 players, whichever report you look at. But the market size is really growing. Today, the market size is about $1.5 to $2 billion. And this is basically the size of opportunity, right? This is the kind of money, the kind of revenue that companies are already making with RPA software globally. And it's also growing very fast, and it's growing for the next 5 years, depending on which analyst report you see. It's probably growing at 30 to 40% cumulative annual growth rate. So this is a technology changing very fast, growing very fast. Some of the major segments are banking and financial services has been a big segment. That's been one segment that has taken the maximum opportunity, have leveraged the opportunity to use RPA. And also, there have been some very big movements in the market recently. I don't know if some of you have been tracking technology news, but not too long back, a few months back, Microsoft bought a very big, did a very big acquisition for about $1.8 billion, and they bought an RPA company. Just last week, IBM bought another RPA company. So all these big, Google, Amazon, Microsoft, they're providing cloud. They have so many other systems and technologies that they're selling. They're also now getting into the space in a big way. And like most technologies, new technologies are started by relatively smaller companies, more niche companies. And as it becomes more relevant, then all these big companies come in and they start either developing something, but if they develop something, they'll take them a few years to reach that point. So they go and acquire companies. They go and acquire companies which have been doing something which they think they can take and take it into the market with their own channel. Also, given the times that we're living in with COVID-19, there's been a lot of speculation on how this is changing the automation industry. And, I've seen it firsthand because, I work with customers in India, in Asia Pacific, that this has given a big boost to the market growth for RPA because companies are looking to now, leverage human workforce for more decision making and try to start dehumanizing repetitive tasks so that humans can work on higher, up the value chain decision-making kind of tasks. Also, when people are working remote, working from home is a challenge. Data security, a lot of companies are realizing that it makes more sense to use automation technology to take up this work, which can be done in the background without too much of human requirements. So when people are not available, they can't come to offices. Technologies like RPA can keep the lights on. Now, in terms of the technology itself, where is it going? Aside of the market size and market share and all those things, there are some things that are happening in the product itself, right? All these major companies keep pushing, against each other to be better from the competition. So one, I mentioned that this software is pretty dumb, right? RPA is all rule-based, repetitive. So it's pretty dumb. It can't do decision making traditionally. But now the software is also getting more smart. It's getting more intelligent. And I have a slide after this to talk further on that. Also, it's getting more and more simple. It's getting more and more ready for citizen development for anybody who doesn't have coding. And that is a big charm of this technology because 30, 40 years, everybody has believed that software and IT, you need to be, having a degree in computer science, or if not, go through some, programming course, know how to program and code, and then you can do something on the computer, which can, then you can create certain, software programs. But now with RPA and this whole low code, no code software development movement and citizen development, which is already taken off last few years, RPA is really providing that edge to companies to then, what it means is, and why it's relevant is then, we say it's democratizing technology. Software and software development is no longer, within a small group of people who know how to code. So it's democratizing. And some of you may feel, oh, this is, how can somebody who's not understood computer programming, how can they write code, or how can they write a software program? But the software platform is such that it takes care of everything underlying, it abstracts that, and only asks the user to drag and drop, and everything else, any mistakes are all, taken care of. It won't allow you to do certain things if the flow is not right, and things like this. Also, RPA is working to get influence from other technologies. AI, artificial intelligence, and machine learning is extremely, integratable and is coming into now. So a lot of my customers now who have been into RPA for like 2 or 3 years within their own journeys are now looking at getting in artificial intelligence, machine learning, and some of these technologies. And this is then basically helping it, be more smart, more intelligent. It's also coming on the cloud. So you could be using it on-prem, you could use it on cloud. Analytics is, getting, so there are different trends from other technologies that are coming in. In terms of the skills, how it's getting smarter, I think these are some examples where computers are now the RPA technology is now allowing computers to have vision. So, it's very easy, like I said, for us to see a picture and make sense of what it is. It's very difficult for a computer, or to read a PDF and get some values out of it. So problem solving, planning, sequencing, collaboration, these are different skills which become very intuitive for us, very difficult for computers. And these are areas where RPA is now getting into and getting smarter. So very quickly, before we go to the Q&A, what are the opportunities for some of you who are now, possibly looking at this and saying, okay, it looks good, sounds good. Can I look at a career here? Can I look at, or how do I look at a potential career in RPA? So in terms of job opportunities, I think it's only growing because this is a relatively newer field. But you can expect opportunities, you can expect jobs, and assignments coming in these 3 sets of buckets of opportunities. One is enterprises, right? So almost any mid-size or large-size company today is already on our RPA journey or is planning to. Now, in India, things are slightly slower for different reasons, different topics. But generally, I think it's good also in many ways that a lot of Indian companies are, enterprises I was talking about, wait for some of these technologies to settle down, to make sense. Also, we have some other reasons why Indian companies look at this in a slower way. But now, I'm based out of India, and I see a lot of our customers here in this region taking up RPA in a very, very big way, right? Almost any big or mid-sized bank you can think of, most of the big, pharmaceutical companies, CPG companies, retail companies you can think of, they're all using this in their offices. The second set of opportunities are with service providers like, IBM, TCS, Cognizant, Infosys. All these are different companies who go to, let's say a bank and say, we will help you deploy this, right? So when they go and pick these contracts, they need people who can develop an RPA, right? And so there's another set of opportunities that you can look at from service providers. And then there are product vendors. There are a few like Blue Prism, and there's several other technology companies who are in this space. So if you're looking for a job, you could look at with a product vendor, with a service provider, or with any of the companies which have an RPA program. And now there are various kinds of roles as well, right? Not everybody has to be a developer. There are roles like process analysts. If you have some experience, people who have been in a BPO space, for example, start having some good experience on process architecture, process design. That's a role that you could look at in the space of RPA. Of course, the developers, I talked about that. Then they're technical architects. If you want to get into RPA and you also know coding, then you become like a guru, and you can become a technical architect and design solutions. On the business side, for people who have had a career in management or who've already been into management for some time, if you've run BP organizations, if you've run, used PMP, Six Sigma kind of program management functions, then there are again opportunities for you to get into it. And technically, like I said, if you want to get into some of these things, it will help if you have some basic programming awareness. Not necessary, but it helps, gives you an edge. If you know computer languages, which is additional, because then you really know the science behind it, and you could be a technical architect, or you could be one of the senior developers. And then if you have any interest in Python, machine learning, Python, for example, I would call out as one language that I see most companies using. So if you're wondering, yeah, this makes sense, I'm still in second year, what is it that I can do from here? I would say, please, pick up Python. That is one way. The other is that most companies, there are companies, other companies like UiPath, Automation Anywhere, Blue Prism I mentioned. There are some open source companies. They also have, learning editions, free training editions. These are available. So for those of you who want to start using this, and you don't need big servers, you don't need big computer systems. If you have a basic desktop computer or a laptop, you should be able to use this technology. And you could really, it's just up to you, because if you just Google up RPA software or open source or some of these learning editions, you should be able to use it and start getting a sense of what this is. So it's been about 47 minutes past 10. So I know I probably talked a little bit more than I wanted to, 5 minutes more, but I will now take a pause. See if anybody has any questions, or are there any questions in the chat? Do I see?
Okay, if any participant is having any query regarding the RPA, can ask directly or can put your question in your chat box.
Sir, tell me a difference between artificial intelligence and big data analysis.
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Difference between big data analysis and artificial intelligence.
So big data, right, or data analytics is the science. It's a technology that is being used by companies to help in decision making with large sets of data. When you have hundreds and millions and billions of data, how do you process the data? How do you analyze the data? How do you quickly crunch the data to be able to make some good decisions, right? That is big data. And it's a full area itself. There are data lakes, different Hadoop. You probably have heard of Hadoop and some of these things. Artificial intelligence, on the other hand, is something which is more broader. Artificial intelligence is basically, computers we think are so fast and so many, they can do, but they're very dumb, right? Natural intelligence that all of us have is much better than computer intelligence. So artificial intelligence is a field which is trying to give more intelligence to these dumb computers. And so that has a much wider, it can be used in space exploration, it can be used so anywhere where, like I said, making the classic example of, if you go to Google, classic example of AI, artificial intelligence would be, can my computer program, see a picture and find out what it is, right? So it's a different field. Big data is data crunching analytics.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I see some question in the chat. How effective is RPA in contact center, unlike data processing? So this is from Shraddha Lakshmi. So contact center, if you're referring to, like a BPO voice or non-voice or these kind of things, very, very relevant, right? A lot of the automation is actually happening in contact center. And since you brought that question up, there's also this concept of human in the loop, where People sometimes want the computer to take some decisions after consulting a human. So it's extremely relevant, because again, contact center, if you see much of, and why? Because much of the work is rule-based, repetitive, and you can, automate those kind of activities. Okay, any more? I'm seeing another question here on chat. For a fresh, what level of expertise is needed? For a fresh required, what level of expertise is needed in RPA tools? And what are the best platforms from a trainer point of view with a good community support and training material? Ishant, great question. I would say, Ishant, what is the level of expertise required? Like I was saying earlier, it's very basic. You don't need to be, you could just, as long as you know how to use MS Office and, basic computer, knowledge, you should be able to, get into RPA. There are various tools. I will, if there's interest within your institute, I will speak to Director Sir and see if, we would also enable our academic program for your institute. And that way you would get free, learning edition. We have a great community. In fact, Blue Prism has 60% of their worldwide developers out of India. There's a big community of developers in India who are powering a lot of the automation that is being done in US and UK and Europe out of India. So I would definitely say you could look at Blue Prism. There's also some open source products. I think OpenSpan is one. Just Google up, right? I mean, and you will get a sense. But I think you're asking the right question, because training material community is definitely very helpful for anybody who's coming in. There's another question from Ranjit Singha saying, can you show some example how it's done? Ranjit, I will not be able to show right now how it's done. I mean, if you have interest, please connect with me after this. I'll be more than happy to walk you through some of it, send you some material. But it may not be possible. But I will share my email address after this, and please feel free to reach out to me and let's talk. Ranjit, again, can you tell me some website where I can learn by myself? Well, again, there's no website that can teach you, right? First, look up a product. Either you can, if you want to do it like right now, immediately after this, you can Google up open source RPA. Get a little inquisitive. And I don't want to serve it to you to say, here's the link, go learn, right? Look at RPA, understand, which are some of the open source products. You'll find some listings and go ahead. But if you really want to get serious into this, the top 3 companies are, UiPath, Automation Anywhere, and Blue Prism, right? And I don't want to get into which is better and where I work for and whatever, but these are the top 3 companies, whichever report you look at. So do consider either Blue Prism, UiPath, or Automation Anywhere. But to start off with, start with something, start learning. There's another question from Harshit. How can RPA help in real development process like application development? So, Harshit, to your question, so RPA, how can it help in application development? See, the application development, as we know it, will continue, right? It'll not. This is not to say, because there are some complex applications that will still need to be developed. So I would definitely say these are 2 different things. And where RPA helps is that it helps bridge multiple different systems, especially if we don't have the APIs known. So it can help also, in some of this, a longer discussion. It can help in helping create some of the tasks faster. And a lot of the application development, if you see the whole programming logic, a lot of the work can now be automated with low-code development. So it can coexist. It doesn't replace. Okay, any more questions? Anybody has? I see one more question on chat, but if somebody wants to ask a question here.
Hello.
Sorry, I was not able to hear it.
Yes, ma'am, you are audible. You can ask your question.
सर, जो आपने बताया है सर, वो इनपुट पे डिपेंड करता है कि जो हमने इनपुट दी उस हिसाब से ही आउटपुट?
देखिए, ये So obviously कोई भी सॉफ्टवेयर प्रोग्राम होगा उसमें इनपुट और आउटपुट होगा, राइट? कोई भी आप कंप्यूटर के सिस्टम देखते हो तो उसमें आप एक इनपुट होता है, एक आउटपुट होता है. बट ये जो टेक्नोलॉजी है ये ऐसी है कि ये आप जो एग्जिस्टिंग सॉफ्टवेयर होते हैं जिसमें कि एक इनपुट आता है, एक आउटपुट आता है, कभी भी वो आप देखेंगे वो आउटपुट जो है अक्सर 70% टाइम्स वो आउटपुट फिर कहीं और जाता है, राइट? चाहे वो एक हम वैल्यू को कॉपी कर रहे हैं या वो इनपुट को लेके हम कहीं और फीड कर रहे हैं. आपने पता लगाने है कि फीस कितनी पे करनी है, सो आप वो पता लगा ले कि फीस कितनी पे करनी है, फिर आप क्या कर रहे हो, आप जाके फिर फीस पे कर रहे हो बैंक से. तो जो ये कंटिन्यूस प्रोसेस होता है टिल फ्रॉम द स्टार्ट टू एंड टिल यू एक्चुअली डू व्हाट टिल यू डिलीवर द सर्विस टू अ कस्टमर, या आपने जहां पर वो ट्रांजैक्शन खत्म करना है, तो ये उसको कंटिन्यूस बनाता है. सो इनपुट और आउटपुट तो हर सिस्टम्स में रहते हैं, लेकिन दिस इज बेसिकली हेल्पिंग आपको ब्रिज कर रहा है गैप जो कि मल्टीपल सिस्टम्स में होते हैं. एक आउटपुट दूसरे सिस्टम का इनपुट बन जाता है. So I'm seeing one more question. How effective RPA is in ICR unlike OCR? Shraddha Lakshmi. So I think Shraddha is asking some very good questions, and I'm wondering if she's already from this field. So OCR is optical character recognition, and I think ICR you're referring to is I mean, I don't know if you're referring to intelligent OCR, the different ways and how people refer it. But since you asked that, RPA is one of the frontiers of RPA is now that they are looking at allowing the software to read documents. So to read a document, to capture information from a document, and that is something which is extremely which is the next frontier of bringing RPA with more intelligence. So it is definitely in the space where RPA is working, and let's talk more. I mean, I think some of you have more interest, and we can have a more detailed discussion. Harshit, another question: blood pressure monitor using this technology, or this is also different? Blood pressure monitor. I don't know from where you got this blood pressure monitor. I'm not aware. So I don't know, Harshit. I didn't get the question. Blood pressure monitor is a completely different space. Nikhil, I don't know if my screen is still visible. I wanted to share my email address with people. So if anybody wants to, write to me, talk to me further, or if some of you have a smaller group, right? If they 4, 5, 7, whatever, 10 of you or 2 of you have more interest, I'll be more than happy to maybe next weekend or whenever spend 1 or 2 hours and talk further on this, right? That smaller group. So feel free to write to me. This is my email address. And the best would be to one of you can take the lead, set up a session, let me know the time, and preferably early evening, because daytime I'm generally at at my work, working from home these days. So Pratik, any more questions? Sorry, Nikhil, any more questions, or I'm just conscious of time?
That's great, sir. Thank you very much, Ashutosh sir. You made us aware about robotic process automation with great ease and clarity. I must say this session is very high yielding for all of us. Now I would like to invite Mr. Anurag Kumar, Director in Charge, NIELIT Haridwar, and the patron of this webinar to say a few words. Sir, please.
How audible? Hello, Nikhil.
Yes, sir.
Ready for voice?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Good morning to all, and a very good morning to Ashutosh, especially because he spared his valuable time for this webinar. I'm really thankful to you, Ashutosh, for accepting our invitation and delivering such a wonderful and informative session today. It is really Great that we got to hear on such a wonderful topic like robotic process automation from an industry expert like you, who has such a vast experience in this technology. I've learned from you that this technology is being used on such a large scale in most of the top-notch companies. Learning this technology will certainly help those students who are aspiring to make their career in this industry. This will also help people in bringing more productivity in their companies. Anyways, at this moment, I would like to take this opportunity to tell something about NIELIT also. Uh, NIELIT is an autonomous body of Ministry of Electronics and IT, Government of India. It has more than 43 own regional center extension centers across the country. It has more than 900 accredited training partners and about 10,000 facilitation centers. And perhaps we are the biggest organization of ministry which does capacity building and skill development in the areas of electronics and IT throughout the country. You may be surprised to know that NIELIT has skilled more than 53 lakh people in last 6 years only. And a bit about NIELIT Haridwar Center. This is the only regional center of NIELIT in Uttarakhand. The center was set up in 2017. And since then, we have conducted digital literacy certification examinations for about 1.4 lakh people in Uttarakhand itself. That's a huge figure. And we have trained and skilled people in various programs ranging from advanced technologies such as IoT, machine learning, embedded systems, web technologies, computer aided design, etc. We have also conducted awareness programs on digital payments, e-governance services, e-waste management, and more than 2,000 people have benefited from these programs. We are also conducting various awareness programs for senior citizens also. And recently we have launched a program for housewives also. So this is just an like initiative to make more and more people aware of the latest technologies and especially to bring people to the digital platforms. Now during this COVID-19 pandemic period, we started doing awareness programs so that students who are sitting at their home may utilize their time and get to learn things which they do not learn in the classrooms. And it is great that Mr. Ashutosh has agreed to spare his time for this webinar. I hope all the participants must have gained good amount of knowledge from this webinar. Once again, I would like to extend my sincere vote of thanks to Mr. Ashutosh for sharing such valuable knowledge with the participants and with all of us, which will certainly help all of us in making their work more productive, and especially to students, it will help them in making their bright career. Once again, thanking you all. Have a very good day ahead. Bye bye.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you,
Anurag.
sir.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Okay.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
sir. It's wonderful to conduct such a webinar which remains fruitful. Help us to understand robotics in all allied verticals. Now there is an important announcement for all the participants. For all the participants, it is requested that kindly fill the feedback cum e-certificate form so that you will get the certificate for this webinar. E-certificate will be issued to only those participants who registered for this webinar and also fill the feedback cum e-certificate form on the given link. The e-certificate will be issued after the verification process and it will take around 1 week time. The feedback link has already been shared in the chat section as well as on the WhatsApp group. In case of any queries or doubt, feel free to contact us on our WhatsApp number, that is 9368349990, or you can email us at haridwar@nilit.gov.in. Thank you for such a lovely audience. Stay learned, stay home, stay safe.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you. Bye.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye. Thank you, Ashutosh. Once again.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.